listening to the Crosscheck NHL Show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Andrew Berkshire and Mary Clark.
Hello and welcome to the Crosscheck NHL Show. Thanks for making the Crosscheck NHL Show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. We're free and available on all platforms, now including YouTube. My name is Mary Clark, staff writer for The Win, and you can follow me on Twitter at Mary C. Clark. I'm here with Andrew Berkshire, NHL analyst for the Montreal Gazette and host of Game Over Montreal and the SDPN. You can follow on Twitter at Andrew Berkshire. On this Tuesday edition of the Crosscheck, the Stanley Cup Final is set. We'll preview the Cup Final between the Colorado Avalanche and Tampa Bay Lightning, while also saying our goodbyes to the New York Rangers. Plus, which hockey teams are the greatest of all time, and where do the Lightning rank on that list? So, Andrew, before we start off today's show, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It was a long weekend over here, but we got through it. We're back to the regular work week. I'm excited for the Stanley Cup Final. Not much else. I'm on lower quality today because my wife has the camera for a class that she's doing, so you'll just have to deal with it, folks.
Yeah, the first thing I noticed about you was the fact that you aren't wearing a hat, because you usually do. I didn't even notice the camera quality, just because, the hat is more visually distinct part of you, Andrew, instead of your visual quality. But I must say that when you have your normal camera, your quality is pristine. So, at least one of us is putting in the effort. So, yeah. My weekend was good. It was my birthday on Friday, so I had a nice, good birthday weekend. I hung out with my family, had a nice birthday dinner, hung out with my friends. Just a very low-key, birthday weekend. But yes, I also am excited about hockey. We've got a lot to talk about because this is it, folks. We're in the end game, as it were. The Stanley Cup Final is here, but first, instead of previewing the Stanley Cup Final, we are going to turn the clocks back to, I believe, Saturday night, right? In the Eastern Conference Final, Game 6 between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Rangers. Tampa Bay was coming into the game with a 3-2 series lead. Basically looked ready and poised to advance to the Stanley Cup Final, and they did. So we're going to talk about that game first. Andrew, do you have any thoughts overall about the game? We're gonna dig deep here in this segment. Talk more about the Rangers than the Lightning, because we're going to talk more about the Lightning in the next segment, because they made it to the Stanley Cup Final, but the score was 2-1. Yet again, the score was 2-1 Lightning at the end of the night. What did you think of the game? How'd it go for you?
One thing about the game stood out to me more than anything else, and that was once the Rangers tied it up, when Frank Vatrano scored on the power play, it took Tampa Bay 21 seconds to destroy any hope that they had. Steven Stamkos scores both goals in Game 6. Epic leader moment for him. Another great performance from Andrei Vasilevsky, but it's so Tampa Bay Lightning that the moment that you think that you have them or that you might have a chance, they just take it away immediately. Only 3 goals are scored in this game total. It's a game where both goaltenders are phenomenal. And the one moment that you get a little bit of hope, it takes a shift and the Tampa Bay Lightning steal it away from you. It's that kind of stuff that Tampa Bay does over and over again. It's the last minute game winners they score at the end, dying seconds of the third period. They've done multiple times in these playoffs, multiple times in this cup run, going all the way back to 2015. They've done it. There's something about that team that is magical, that sucks all the air out of opponents. And I can't help but respect the hell out of that team, because it's not a one-off thing. They do it all the time. And even when there's times where they're up against it or facing elimination, they find a way.
Yes. That Stamkos goal, the second goal, was, a quintessential Lightning goal. It was a championship level goal from Stamkos. And obviously they've been there before. They've won back-to-back Stanley Cups for a reason. And it's small mistake too on Igor Shesterkin's part, not being able to grab, secure that glove stop, because, had he been able to grab it properly and, clamp it down, that funky bounce wouldn't have happened that went off of the glove, off of Stamkos into the net. It really was a true championship type level goal between, just like taking the counter punch and punching right back, basically. Tampa Bay just doesn't let you up off the mat when they're like this. It is oppressive in what they do, and it was really a masterclass in Game 6. And it was, this was the typical Tampa Bay team that we've seen, and it hurts for the Rangers to go out like this. But they took the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions to 6 games. I mean, you don't often get that. Like, I think we talked about it last episode. That's more than the Panthers gave them, and the Panthers were the best offensive team in the NHL this year.
I wonder, honestly, like, of course it hurts in the moment, but I don't know how much it actually hurts the Rangers. You know what I mean? Like, this season has been such a groundswell of like excellent results for them. I feel like they don't even need to be disappointed. Like, Gerard Gallant in his like postseason press conference he was asked, was this a successful season for the Rangers? And he was like, yeah, 100%. And the only thing that I see that's really kind of up in the air for the Rangers is Cabo Caco scratched in the deciding game, and Gerard Gallant basically saying he had to go with the best lineup, which is wild considering that included like Ryan Reeves and not Capo Caco, when the kid line was their best line in that series. It's a real weird one to me that they decided to choose that way to go, because it would be more understandable if Caco was struggling, but he wasn't struggling. It just seemed like they were like, oh, we got to get a veteran in there, get some toughness in there.
And you would think
it did not work at all.
And you would think that this would be the time to, play the young guys, because you make a good point. For the Rangers, this is a disappointing result, sure. But considering how many years ago was it when they had that letter that they were like, it's rebuild time, this is going to be a process. They are ahead of schedule for sure in their process overall. And this would be the time to get the young kids the playoff experience and whatnot, because you're in the Eastern Conference Final. You are staring down the barrel of the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. This is the time. Like, I know you want to win the game, but like, still, this is like, you still want to give the kids the opportunity, because this team is the Rangers are going to be good for a long time. Like,
yeah, that letter was in 2018, by February
Jesus.
2018. So it's only been 4 years.
That seems like a lifetime ago, Andrew.
It does. Here, you want to have it feel like a real lifetime ago? Jeff Gorton was part of the Rangers organization then. Yes, that's true, but that's only like a year ago that he left, right?
Yeah.
The other co-author of that letter was Glenn Sather.
Oh, jeez. That's like... I feel so old. It's the pandemic that did this. It's the pandemic.
Before times, right?
Yes, the before times just seemed like a distant memory. Something I can only like. I have brain fog over it completely. It's just it's not within reach anymore. Even though it really has only been like a handful of years, 4 years or whatever. Like, it shouldn't be that bad, but it is. But yeah, this Rangers team is set up to be really good in the future. They are, like I said, ahead of schedule. Igor Shesterkin, dude, like, what an incredible performance he's had in these playoffs. Like, I know he wasn't able to best, Andrei Vasilevsky in the end, but like, I don't think anybody can.
Well, I think he was the better goaltender in the series. It's just that the Tampa Bay Lightning just had way more scoring ability.
Yeah, it just wasn't enough.
Play at such a ridiculous pace. Like, at a certain point, what can we expect Igor Shesterkin to force the Rangers to overcome? Like, when you look at expected goals from a natural stat trick, the expected goal ratio was 16.5 to 10 at even strength in favor of the Lightning. And it was 10-9 in favor of the Lightning in actual goals. So Shesterkin saved over 6 goals above expected at 5-on-5 alone. And, Vasilevsky saved only 1. So, like, even if the save percentages are relatively similar in terms of, like, I think Shesterkin was about 94, and Vasilevsky was 93.2.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the goaltending performance was vastly superior on the Rangers side. No disrespect to Vasilevsky, it's just that Shesterkin put on a friggin' show.
Yeah,
You
it was
know,
great.
he was fantastic in this series, and Vasilevsky was just good.
Mhm.
And at a certain point, the Rangers are going to be better than this if Shesterkin's able to maintain this level of performance. That is extremely scary,
Oh yeah.
you know, because the last few games of this series were not great for the
Mhm.
Rangers. Like, as soon as the series moved to Tampa Bay, I believe the Rangers controlled like 32% of the scoring chances. Like, it
Mhm.
was that bad. So I don't know. The Rangers are a team. They're probably the worst team to ever make it this far in like the salary cap era, or like the Corsi era, we'll say. But at the same time, there's enough stuff going right for them that I don't think they should necessarily be concerned. I think they should be happy with this and
Mhm.
look forward to a year, 2 years down the line.
Yeah, and they can still change things. Like, they can
Oh,
still
of
change
course.
things up, and the advanced numbers didn't look good for them over the course of the series, but the series really changed when they let the Lightning back in game 3. They had the chance to put them on the ropes, and they just didn't. I know it was probably still going to be an uphill battle for them because, as we've seen, Tampa Bay is just an absolute monster and doesn't want to go down quietly at all. But they had a real chance there to take a like, a stranglehold on the series, and they just weren't able to do it. But the future is bright for this Rangers team. I mean, like, they've got their young players. I mean, Adam Fox is going to be an incredible defenseman for years to come on this team. Like, there's some real magic happening. I don't think, Chris Kreider is going to maintain his level of incredible goal scoring acumen that he had.
Definitely not.
Um, but this team can make some additions and can supplement that, supplement, what they're probably going to lose, because, Chris Kreider's probably still gonna be a very good player. I just don't think he's gonna be able to hit what did he hit? Like, he hit, like, 40 goals at least this year, right? I don't think I'm making that up. It was a ridiculous number for somebody his age. I mean, they've still got Panarin. They've got, they've got a really good core to this team. They just need to make smart additions to, basically just, pump up their offensive push, basically. Like, that was like the big thing. And a big thing that you ragged on them, Andrew, in the playoffs overall is that they just weren't getting a lot of quality chances. They were finishing on, like, they were getting the finish on things, but, like, some of it seemed a little like it wasn't sustainable, basically.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, they're
so
riding high shooting percentages, which they did for most of the season. And Shesterkin was just incredible, the best goaltender in the league this year,
Mhm.
one of the most valuable players in the league this year. Huge for them. But yeah, I think the biggest question for the New York Rangers going forward is: are their young players going to ascend to that next level in time for guys like Panarin and Chris Kreider to still be effective?
Mhm.
That's the big question, right? So will they? I don't know, but I think it's probably less likely. Like, I would see Kreider being maybe like a more of a role player by the time
Mhm.
they're in their prime years for competing. But Panarin, I think his drawback at even strength has been severe over the last couple of years, and I do worry about him a little bit.
Do you think, looking ahead towards next year, because the Metropolitan Division has got it's got some heavyweight teams at the top, but there are a few in flux. Like, the Capitals and Penguins are still in flux. We're not sure where they're going to land at any given year. It could be, they could continue to be really great, or they could fall off. They're they continue to be in a weird area. But do you think the Rangers will, could they win the Metropolitan Division? You've got teams like Carolina up there, and the Islanders if they bounce back. But the Islanders are playing at a bit of a disadvantage because Barry Trotz isn't coming back. And,
Yep.
we know how good of a coach he was. I mean, for me, the main competition, in the Metropolitan right now, just based on what we've seen from them in this postseason, is Carolina. So is there a chance that, the Rangers are the best team in the Metro next year?
With Shesterkin, yes. I think that's like the main thing. If he repeats this season next year, and Lafreniere, Kako, and Hedel continue their like progress, if they become a legitimate like good second line next year as opposed to a good third line, yeah, They could definitely overtake Carolina, but Carolina is the team that's proven the most in the regular season, at least. And also, for whatever reason, we just can't write off the Penguins.
I know
You
we
know?
can't, but like they have to make that. They're facing down decisions, Andrew. Like
They are.
they're
Malkin and Letang, both UFAs.
yeah, they're facing down decisions. I don't know what this Penguins team is going to look like come the season starting, but
Just
like
another 10 Mark Donks.
you say that, but I feel like it has to end sometime for the Penguins. I will finish off this segment though with one more question to you, Andrew. If you had to make one move for the Rangers this offseason, what would you do? Because for me, it would be to, figure out how to add another, piece that adds scoring. Because for me, like I said, the Kreider thing, I don't think he's going to be able to maintain that level of play. And that was a huge boost for this Rangers team. So I would go out and, look at the UFA market. I mean, like, I don't know if they could afford somebody like Johnny Gaudreau, but like, just that thought is interesting to me. But if you could make one move on this Rangers team to set them up for another good season where they can compete and get to the Eastern Conference Final again, what would you do?
I would let Ryan Strome go. I know that Rangers fans like him and he's fit in well there. And I would sign Nazem Kadri.
Ooh, that is a spicy move. I am so here for it. We talked about, the coaching market being a big one, but the free agent market I don't think is going to be much of a slouch either, and just
No, there's
overall
some
in
big
general.
names.
Yeah, so this is going to be a fun summer. It's also going to be a shorter summer too, because I believe free agency starts July 13th or 14th, so basically in a month from now. So it's going to be a bit of a shorter off season by a couple of weeks than we're used to. So yeah, but we're going to end it there. We said our goodbyes to the Rangers. Overall, fun team in the playoffs. I know that they probably hit higher than they were expected to based on the numbers, but give them credit where it's due. They played some really good hockey and were able to eliminate some good hockey teams in the process. And, there's nothing wrong with falling to the Tampa Bay Lightning, because who hasn't at this point, really?
No kidding.
I know. But speaking of the Lightning, we are going to preview coming up next. We are previewing the Stanley Cup Final between, like I said, the Lightning and the Avalanche. And is this Stanley Cup Final the best one we've had in, I don't know, nearly a decade now? We'll be talking about that coming up right after this. Don't you love a chewy, chocolatey brownie? What about a caramel brownie with caramel swirled on top? So good. What if I told you that you can have all that chewy, chocolatey deliciousness plus 17 grams of protein? You're in luck. These caramel brownies bars are available at built.com right now, and you got to act fast because they're a fan favorite. Forget about dessert. These are better than dessert. Plus, the macros are unreal. 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 4 grams of sugar. I would replace a regular brownie with Built's caramel brownie bar in a heartbeat. The best part, caramel brownie bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Like, for real. With Built, you don't have to sacrifice tasty for healthy. You can have both. And all of Built bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. There are a million reasons that you should try Built bars, but for now, let's just say that caramel brownie will rock your world. That's not an understatement. With Built, tasty is the new healthy. Go to Built.com and you get your box of caramel brownie bars now. So go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off of your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. We have an important favor to ask you. We've put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcasts even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and what you don't like about Locked On Podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes the survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. Take our audience survey. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thanks for your help. All right, Andrew. So the Stanley Cup Final is here. Wow. The playoffs just go by so fast every year. And I just want them to continue forever. But it's wild how, they did start on, I believe, May 1st. So it has gone by pretty quickly, honestly. We've gotten some really good hockey, some really bad hockey. But this one, Andrew, I believe this series isn't going to disappoint us. I don't think it can. I really hope it doesn't. It is the Colorado Avalanche coming out of the West versus the Tampa Bay Lightning coming out of the East. Whoo boy. This series has the potential to be one of the best in ages. And that's not to take away from teams like, the Dallas Stars, the Montreal Canadiens, the Vegas Golden Knights when they
But the
were there.
Cinderella teams never put up the fight at the end that you expect, right?
Yes.
Like, you have a final that's literally the two best teams in the league. You know what I mean? It's not
Mhm.
actually that common. And this feels like a final that is the two best teams in the league.
Yes. And that is something to be excited for, because my God, are these two teams fun, exciting, kind of what I want the future of hockey to be, if I'm being honest. Yes, Cinderella stories are great, fun, they make great narratives. But in actuality, when you get to the Stanley Cup final, it doesn't often produce results. What would be the last time a team upset in the Stanley Cup final? I don't really.
Boston over Vancouver in 2011 is the one that sticks out
Mm,
to me. Boston, good team, not a great team to win the Stanley Cup final. Probably should have gone out in the first round.
yeah.
Would have if Zdeno Chara actually got reprimanded for attempting to murder Max Pacioretty. Vancouver, absolute juggernaut of a team, was a team that should have had a dynasty.
Mhm.
Finally got over the hump that was Chicago, and then just ran out of gas at the end. Too many players injured. That, I think, is a bit of an upset. But you're right, Mary. Usually it's not an upset.
Yeah, it isn't. And like I said, makes for great stories. But reality doesn't often turn out that way. And it's taken
I
us
thought
what
you were
that
going
was.
to do the reality is often disappointing.
Reality is often disappointing, Andrew, that too. But I mean, what you said 2011, right? So that's over a decade now
Yep.
that, we've had, an upset in the Stanley Cup final in terms of just like, I guess, more of the Cinderella story. Um, but man, like, this series is gonna rock. And I truly believe that with my whole heart, or else I'm going to be very sad. More sad than I was at any point in these playoffs, because these are two such incredible fun teams. Offense can score almost at will, it seems. Either through the Avalanche just have sheer talent across the board in terms of what they can provide offensively and just crazy skill. I mean, Cale Makar, just one of the probably like I was gonna say the most talented player out of all of these, but you've got Andrei Vasilevsky on the other side, and we know how talented he is. But like offensively, he's probably the most creatively gifted player here in you know this matchup. But then the Lightning, even though they have the big names, sure, but a lot of their scoring can occasionally come from the depth guys. That's why that's how they built their current Stanley Cup dynasty, as it were, is on the back of their grinding lines. And Stamkos did have the two goals in Game 6 that sent them to the Stanley Cup final, but a lot of Tampa Bay's, I don't want to say they're more blue collar because that feels weird to say, but that they get production from a lot of different places and whatnot. And, so there's that. But for me, the key to this series is going to be in net, because you've got Andrei Vasilevsky. We talked all about his praises all the time. Incredible goaltender, just does not lose in important games. Absolutely just a wall of force out there. Versus, is Darcy Kemper even back?
No, I think it's gonna be Pavel Francouz. If Kemper was back, I'm not even sure he would start. That's the crazy
Yeah, that's
thing.
a good point. Yeah, that's a good point, because
He hasn't been good.
he hasn't been good. It's been a while since we've talked about the Avalanche, because they swept the Oilers in the Western Conference Final. So they've kind of been a little bit out of our minds over the past handful of episodes. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Darcy Kemper wasn't playing great. So it's now Francouz net. But that is a goalie matchup that you are taking Andrei Vasilevsky 10 times out of 10.
Yes, no matter who's in net
No
for
matter who
Colorado.
is in net. I
I feel
mean,
like that's potentially where this series could go from an absolute classic to crap. If Vasilevsky puts on a show and Francouz or Kemper are not great, then it could be over quickly and kind of suck.
yeah, that for me is the big X factor overall. I'd like to think that, you said that Andrei Vasilevsky was good, but, not great completely in the Eastern Conference Final. Shesterkin bested him in terms of just the advanced analytics, even though Vasilevsky was the game, like, was the series winner by the end of it all. So, there is hope that, like, I'd like to think that this series will go back and forth at the beginning. Like, we're going to see, back and forth. One team wins one game, the next team wins the other game. Like, I think it'll go back and forth. We're going to do predictions. I'm not going to spoil them on just yet because I think we have a little bit more to talk about in this topic. But I see it going back and forth before, one team, I think, being able to, emerge and being able to put the foot down. But what are you looking forward to most, Andrew, about the series? Because, I talked about what I was looking forward to in terms of just like the incredible goal scoring, the possibility for, a goaltender to take over the series. I know that may not be as exciting, but, it's fun in, a game or two to see that. But for me, it's the, incredible creativity and speed and skill we're going to see. But what are you looking forward to most here?
I'm just looking forward to seeing what kind of style of hockey wins out, right? If Braden Point is back, do the Tampa Bay Lightning continue to play this like lock it down style because it's been so successful for them? Or do they open it up a little bit and risk Colorado bringing like their intense rush offense? Or can Tampa Bay Lightning's amazing defensive core stand up to that amazing rush offense from the Colorado Avalanche? Do the Lightning finally show signs of being tired like they did in the first round? Because that hasn't really showed since then. They got that break after the second round. Seems like everybody's back up to where they're supposed to be. What I'm impressed about with the Lightning is that they still want it so bad.
Yeah.
Like we saw it with the Washington Capitals. They won once, and it took like 3 years for them to really care again. Like even now, I don't know if they give that much of a crap. Like I don't want to question the
No, yeah.
commitment of a bunch of professional athletes, but compared to when they won, they don't seem to be pushing that hard. Whereas the Lightning, you look at their reaction after Stamkos scored the second goal in game 6, and this team wants so badly to win again. And Steven Stamkos had a quote. He said, "I think it's just belief in ourselves and belief in the work you put in. But trust is the word. We trust every guy that goes over those boards to do his job. Whether you score a goal or not, it's the little things that you do. It's the defending. It's the block shots. It's the sacrifice. It's not complaining about your role. It's going out and playing as hard as you can for the guy that sits beside you in the locker room. That's why this group is so special. We don't know what's going to happen here we don't know what's going to happen here over the next 10 to 14 days, but we know that we're going to give it our all. It's gotten us this far again. It's just a special group and a treat to be a part of it." Like, how can you not believe if you're on the Tampa Bay Lightning?
And I think I figured out the difference between a team like the Lightning and the Capitals. You know what happened to the Capitals after they won their Stanley Cup?
They fired Barry Trotz or got rid of Barry Trotz.
Yeah, Barry Trotz left. You know what the Lightning have really done over the course of their Stanley Cup wins here? They've
Kept the core together.
They've kept a lot of the same people together.
Yep.
Thank you, Andrew, for completely, to be fair, I kind of led you there, but I wanted to have my one little smart moment of being like, oh, it's okay. It's okay.
I thought you were setting me up. But
I mean, I was basically setting you up. But yeah, that's the way I see it is, the Capitals kind of dismantled what they had. Barry Trotz left.
The Capitals went all in to win their one, and the Tampa Bay Lightning under Yzerman and Brisebois have built a team to compete long term.
Yes.
And would they have been happy at the end of the day with one cup? Probably. It's so difficult to win one cup, but now they're on the verge of 3. And they made the finals in 2015. They made the Eastern Conference Finals, I think, in 2018. I think that was they lost against the Capitals. Speaking of them, so this is a team that has been close a few times before they finally won it, and now the winning just never stops. And I still think, looking at the Lightning over the last 2 years, that they did not try in a regular season.
I mean, these guys are just too talented, and I get when you can put 80% of your effort and continue to get into the playoffs. I'm just ballparking a percentage, obviously. When you can put 80% of your effort into getting into the playoffs, and then you've got and other teams are giving 100% of their all because they're not as talented, they're not as tight knit, their system isn't as good, and then you get to the playoffs and you can get basically an additional 20% when other teams are, scrambling to do so because the playoffs, everybody's injured in the playoffs. It is toughest time of the year to play hockey. But when you're a team like the Lightning, that can just be like, all right, time to, actually, put in 100% of our effort. Not like I said, I'm ballparking these numbers, but this kind of feels like what the Lightning do. Like they're so talented, like, at their core, and their system is so good that they don't have to always, give it 100% every night because they believe in themselves so much that they know they're going to be good enough to get in the playoffs. And then they realize, oh, we're in the playoffs. We believe in each other so much that we can, continue to play like, actually like play. I don't want to make an anime reference here, but it's like in Naruto, there is a character where he's playing with weights on basically, and he takes them off and
It's like
gets
Yarmer
super
Yager.
yes, like super fast and incredible. If you're a Naruto fan, you know what I'm talking about. I'm trying not to get into the weeds here for Andrew, but the metaphor stands. Like if you can be competent enough when you've got your weights on, and then what happens when you take them off?
Yeah.
That's what it
I
feels
know
like with the Lightning.
one thing about Naruto, and that is the Naruto run. And I only
Oh yeah.
know about it because do you remember a couple years ago when there was that stupid meme online about like crashing Area 51 and everyone Naruto
Yes.
running into
Yeah.
it?
Oh,
That's why I know what it is.
yeah.
But yeah, also that's how Miles runs. He puts his arms behind his back and runs, and
Yeah. I mean, it's
face
very
plants
much
all the time. Stresses
it's
me out.
it's very much a kid thing, but
Yeah.
regardless, the Lightning here just have something that no other team has, and it's what you're right. It's wild how much they want to win still to this day. I don't think it's because of the their Stanley Cups in the pandemic were fraudulent or whatever. That doesn't matter. I know people still bring about that argument that like their Stanley Cup wins were, not real. They had asterisks on them. They don't. The Lightning have always been a really good team. What'd you say? The 2015, what they were in the Stanley Cup final, right? Um, yeah, they've been sniffing around for a long time. And they've gotten to conference finals before and were never able to make it over the hump. But then I mean, like, they had a historic NHL regular season that got bounced by the not Colorado Avalanche, the Columbus
Columbus
Blue
Blue
Jackets.
Jackets. Yeah.
In a sweep. That was the turning point. But they had a historic regular season before
And they
that.
could have panicked. Like
Yeah,
a
they could
lot of
have.
teams would have panicked and done something stupid, and they didn't. And who was really impressive? Like I don't want to get we've kind of ignored the Colorado
Yeah, I
Avalanche
was gonna
here.
say we need to move it back to the Avalanche, but finish your
We
point here
do,
and we'll talk
but
to them.
one of the players who's impressed me so much about from the Lightning is Andre Palat, who's
Mhm.
going to be an unrestricted free agent this summer. Is very unlikely to be back with the Lightning, and he is given everything possible. I think he was the Lightning's best player in the conference final there. He was just absolutely incredible, constantly making the difference late in games. He's a guy, he's 31 years old. We all like everyone knows about Andre Palat, and I feel like for a time he was well rated, and then Kucherov ascended, Point came in, and now I feel like Palat is again underrated, and we
Mhm.
forget how great a player this guy is. But he's a point a game player in the playoffs. He ended that series with what 5, 6, 7 points the last 4 games that the Lightning
Mhm.
won. Like that's incredible.
Yes, it is. And underrating him is probably to your detriment because, he's shown up in these playoffs and, it's been an absolute treat to watch. But
Yeah.
we're going
I
to now
guess the
talk
question
about
is, who is the Avalanche's Andre Palat?
that
I'd say
is
Nikushkin.
yeah, that's a good point. He also has been playing really well. Like I said, we're going to shift to the Avalanche here because it feels like we've neglected to talk about them. But sure, they may be down Nazem Kadri. They may be down Darcy Kemper, but that one might be a blessing in disguise because Kemper wasn't playing his best hockey in this playoffs. But, Francouz, has been playing seemingly better. So that could at least be a blessing in disguise for this Avalanche team. But they still have incredible players. I mean, like I said, Cale Makar, probably the most gifted creativity, like has the most like gifted creativity in these playoffs. Everything he does is just incredible. That video clip of him, you know, taking the puck away from McDavid is going to live in my mind rent free forever, because like you don't often get players like that. And for him to do that defensively, but then also be incredible offensively, there's not a player like that in the NHL really. And he is just mind blowing in what he's able to do. But, you've got the stars. You've got Nathan McKinnon and Gabriel Landeskog have also, they put some respect on their names. They're really good players. They're really, really good players. And they're going to be just as hungry as the Lightning, if not more so, because, this Lightning squad hasn't won. In general, this Lightning squad hasn't won a Stanley Cup. But when was the last time they were even in the Stanley Cup? Like,
You mean the Avalanche?
yeah,
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah. 2001.
Yeah. So more than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So this team is going to be hungry in a way that it's two different types of hungers. The Lightning want to keep, their dynasty going.
Yeah. The Lightning
the-
almost are like a quiet confidence that they know they can do it.
Yes.
And the Avalanche are going to be all fire.
Fired
Right?
a little bit more desperation, I suppose. Like
Yeah.
they're so confident, like, but it's different. It's different types of confidence for these two teams, because the Lightning are the insurmountable mountain here. And the
final boss.
Avalanche. Yeah,
You've
the final boss.
You've said it all
Yeah, I
playoffs
said it.
long, Mary,
I said
that
it
they're the
all
final
along.
boss.
They're the final boss, and the Avalanche are, your typical JRPG party by the end of the video game. I'm thinking, your
But
typical
will they
Final
use all their
Fantasy VIIs.
elixirs?
Yes, but I'm thinking of your typical Final Fantasy VIIs, at the, facing down Sephiroth at the, very end of the game. A little bit broken, a little bit battered and bruised, missing a core member of their team. But in the end, they're able to prevail. And, it takes a whole, lot out of them to do so, but they're able to do it. But that's for me how I'm looking at the series is, the final boss of, your typical JRPG, where your main hero, like your main team of people, is a bit battered and bruised. But, they're still there, and they're determined to, flip things in their favor and, take back what is theirs and stuff like that. But no more speaking in metaphors, because I want to at least, highlight a few more players on this Avalanche team. You said it, Andrew, and Valerie Nikushin has been, really, really good in the, last couple of series. He's definitely a player to watch for sure. Is there anybody else that you think, could step up, because they're missing Nazem Kadri? That's a huge blow to this team's identity. Is there anybody else you think could step into that role and, continue, to bring this Avalanche team along?
Yeah, I mean, highly biased here, but I think Artturi Lehkonen has been phenomenal for the Colorado Avalanche. He's been just everything they could possibly ask for. How many players have scored 2 straight overtime series winners to send their team to the Stanley Cup Final? Like, that's pretty damn cool.
I know,
and
right?
Then one guy who has been really impressing me, he's kind of a guy that every time I see his name, I'm like, still on the Avalanche, eh? Is JT Compher. I think he's been great in these playoffs. He's scored at key moments in big games. He's really stepped up while Kadri's been out with an injury, can play center. So that's a guy that I look at as a possible key to this series for Colorado. See if he can, add some secondary or tertiary scoring behind the McKinnon line. They're such a good team. There's so many players you could pick out. I mean, everybody knows McKinnon, Makar, Landeskog, Rantanen. I feel like Rantanen has a lot more in him. He hasn't been that great in the playoffs.
Yeah, that would be a player, to be able to step up if, you got to give it your all in the Stanley Cup Final. You can't leave anything out on the table. And, that's a player that, you'd hope that, takes that next step and, gives it everything.
Yeah, I say he hasn't been that good, but he's got 17 points in 14 games. So maybe I should just shut up. I mean,
Listen.
I haven't thought that he's been amazing. That's all. But yeah, JT Compher, I think, is a very good guy to like circle on your fantasy lineups if you're making one. Also, Bowen Byram has been incredible. He's put up a half point a game. He hasn't scored yet. I would not be surprised if Bowen Byram scores a gigantic goal, just because it would also be such a fantastic story with the garbage he's gone through with the head injuries. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah. All right. We're going to end off this segment with predictions. I think I kind of spoiled mine a little bit, and where I said the series is going to go back and forth to start, and then one team is going to, come away with it at the end. I think, you'll get, the Avalanche win one game, Lightning win one game, Avalanche win one game, Lightning win one game, then the Lightning win the last two, and the Lightning three-peat as Stanley Cup champions in 6 games. That is my prediction. I just think that I hope it is a fun, competitive series, and I'm happy either way with where the series goes. I will not be mad if the Lightning three-peat or if the Avalanche are able to upset the final boss in the end and, claim their prize and, turn the narrative on its head and save the world, as it were, in JRPG terms, and, go home, battered and bruised, but not broken. But that is my prediction. The Lightning's magic is just, for me, too much to bear. And key injuries on the part of the Avalanche, for me, might be the big difference. I know that, the Lightning have injuries of their own, but Braden Point seems to maybe be coming back, even if he's not 100% healthy. They're at least getting him back, and Nazem Kadri is a big beating heart of this Avalanche team, and his presence will be missed. And it is a shame that he is not there, because I really think that the series could, if he was there, I think the series could have gone 7 and maybe been the Avalanches to take. But for me, I think it's just a little bit too much. But what do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, Kadri's skating, so he's not yet ruled out for game 1. He could play in
All
this
right.
series, so that's a big deal for the Avalanche. I think this series ends in 6 and the Avalanche take it, and my main
Ooh.
reason why is, I don't know if you saw this tweet from Dmitry Filipovich almost a
No.
week ago now, but when Devon Taves and Cale Makar are both in the lineup, the Colorado Avalanche this season are 63, 9, and 6. And that is ridiculous. It's insane. And I think it might be insurmountable. As great as
Yeah.
the Lightning are, I think this Colorado Avalanche team has been knocking on the door for so long. They are the
Mhm.
Lightning of 2020. And because Kadri will likely be leaving in the offseason, because they have some salary cap issues to deal with, because Nathan McKinnon needs a new contract, this is not necessarily the last kick at the can, but it is the last kick for a lot of this core. So I think the Avalanche will want this just a hair more than the Lightning want the three-peat.
All right. I'm so here for this. Like I said, I don't think you're going to be mad either way with the way the series goes, right? Like, I think both of us just want good, fun, exciting hockey that's worthy of a Stanley Cup final, because like I said, this should be the most exciting Stanley Cup final we've had in years, and we should enjoy it, because I don't know, it doesn't come around very often. We don't often get best on best, and this truly is a best on best for the Stanley Cup final. But coming up next, speaking of best on best, we are going to have a little bit of a fun discussion about some of the hockey teams in the past that we would quantify as the greatest of all time, and where the Lightning fit in that conversation, because I think it's valid to talk about them in that case, because God, look at what they've done so far in their most recent history. But that'll be coming up right after this. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, Andrew. So this is a topic you brought up because, there's not a lot to talk about in this time of year. The, Stanley Cup Final hasn't started yet. The coaching search is still at a standstill. There's no free agency stuff to talk about, no trades to talk about, nothing to talk about in the hockey world. So it's time to debate who the GOATs are, Andrew. So, this was your topic. So, I think you should lead us into this one.
Well, I mean, there were things that happened while there was no hockey going on,
Sure.
but they're kind of more scandalous than anything. And I mean, hockey players cheat. We'll leave it at that. But
Yes, yes.
yeah, this is something that I'm thinking about more and more while watching this Lightning team, and you have to put everything in context, right? And
Mm.
this Lightning team has played, in my opinion, it was the toughest back-to-back of all time to do it in the pandemic, to do the first one without fans at their backs, to have a short summer, to come back and do it again next year, to have another short summer in another compressed season, to come back and do it again this year. In my opinion, they are now, if they get this done, even if they don't really, like if they lose in 7, they have put themselves into the same category for me as the 1980s Islanders and the 1970s and 1960s Montreal Canadiens. The Montreal Canadiens that won 5 in a row and 4 in a row, and the Lightning that won 4 in a row. They're not Lightning, the Islanders.
Mhm.
The Islanders are like, they would be the most impressive team overall just because they have 19 straight series wins. Like, people forget they went to the Stanley Cup Final the following year as well. They
Mhm.
almost won 5 before the Oilers went past them. But the thing is, 80s hockey and 70s hockey and even 60s hockey, the parity was not the same.
No.
So I think we have to contextualize what the Lightning are doing here with the salary cap, with the way hockey has changed, with how much more of a grind it is today than it was back then. And like, yeah, the players have better amenities, sure, but it's just way harder to win now than it
Mhm.
was back then. No offense to those teams, they still did it. But to me, this Lightning team is one of the greatest teams of all time.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And like I said, we talked a lot about the Lightning, and I don't want to make this like, completely Lightning centric. I am going to ask though, are there any teams in the modern era that could potentially, at least be in the conversation? I don't think anybody is like the Lightning at all in the modern era. We know that they are the pinnacle of the Stanley Cup era. But is there any other team? I hate to give props to the Chicago Blackhawks, but they are at least
They
a
were great.
team that is, in that contention because, they won in 2010, didn't win for the next 2 years, but then won in 2013 and then won in 2015. So, that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 3 and 6 years isn't anything to be, sneezed at either. And like I
Yeah.
said, I hate to give props to them because we know that the horrible things that they've done in their organization should not be forgotten. It needs to be talked about continuously because, that shouldn't be forgotten. And we don't want it to happen ever again in the NHL. And it is tough to give props to that team overall. But on the ice, they were a really dominant team. Taves and Kane um, are an incredible duo, and we've talked about Kane before and stuff like that. It's so hard to talk about this team with the amount of things that are in their history. Like I said, it's hard to give them props, but on the ice, winning 3 Stanley Cups in 6 years is at least puts them in contention for some of the greatest hockey teams of all time because of what they were able to accomplish over the years. Like, it's not nearly as impressive as the Lightning because they didn't go back to back. There were years like they weren't able to get that back to back, but it's still a testament to their longevity as their core overall that they were able to make the runs that they did in the way that they did.
Yeah, I think it depends on what we're talking about, right?
Mhm.
Like, I think for most people, when you use the word dynasty, it has to be consecutive.
Mhm.
But in the salary cap era, I just feel like it's so much more difficult to win multiple cups in a row that you could probably extend the word dynasty to the Blackhawks. I think dynasty starts with 3 cup wins. But if you're looking at like the totality of what one team was able to do over like one generation of players kind of thing, then you could compare Chicago to some other teams, and they're impressive, but I don't know if they're as impressive. Like, I don't think they're the most impressive team in the league over
Mhm.
that time, right? Well, over that specific time where they were winning cups, yes, they were the best team in the league. But if we're to compare in the salary cap era, which teams were the best overall, I think if you just simply look at like playoff wins over time,
Mhm.
it's the Penguins.
Yeah.
They were the best team in the salary cap era overall. If you were to compare beyond that and look at like what were the best, most dominant teams while they had that certain set of that core together, you could go back a little further to the like the Waugh, Forsberg, Sakic Avalanche. You could look at the Yzerman, Fedorov, Lidstrom, Detroit Red Wings, which then transitioned into the Zetterberg, Datsuk, Lidstrom, Red Wings. Like, the Lidstrom era
Yeah.
for Detroit is unarguably one of the greatest of all time,
I mean,
right? Like,
how many years did they make the playoffs consecutively? Like,
I think it
it
was
was
like
a lot.
25 or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's hard to do. Like, I know that, eras in hockey were changing and stuff like that back then, but, to, have that much success to get into the playoffs, it's no small feat. And it was a big deal when that streak was broken because
Yeah.
They had such a good core of players. Like, they weren't mediocre. They were good
No.
enough to make the playoffs, and it is tough to be that good for that long to make the playoffs in a league like the NHL, where it feels like, you know, being mediocre is easy to do. Like,
And
it
it's
just,
very easy to screw up even when you're on
yes.
top, right? Like we
Mhm.
saw Chicago, right? They
Yeah.
screwed up constantly and they were able to kind of maintain it because their core players stayed together, but and were cheap. They won early,
Mhm.
which I think is very, very important, which kind of makes what the Penguins did so impressive to win so late in the game with
Mhm.
their core, but went back to back late in the game. But like looking back at the entire uh, salary cap era, you know which team actually has the best winning percentage? The
What?
Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah,
The
that is
Tampa Bay
not,
Lightning, and that
yeah,
doesn't
not
even
a surprise.
include their Stanley Cup that they won right before, right?
Mhm.
Because they won in 2004
Mhm.
against Calgary. So if we extend it back there, let's see. Tampa Bay is now, if we go back to 2003, 2004, nobody has as many wins in the playoffs as Tampa Bay. 112. Their playoff winning percentage is 60.5%. The next best is Chicago at 58.4. So
Yeah.
they are the best team of this era.
Yeah. I do want to mention the Penguins again once more before we end this off. I know that was a great segue to end it, but yeah, you make a good point about the Penguins too, because they won in 2009, and then they had a dip. They looked directionless in what they wanted to do. They tried to surround Sidney Crosby with guys that just didn't work. They tried to do that thing where they let's protect Sidney Crosby with goons and stuff, instead of trying to build a team with skill. And once they realized they didn't have to do that, once they realized that their talent was good enough to overcome anything else, really, even with all the concussions and stuff to Crosby, which, also was a big factor in why those years were so middling, or, more difficult overall for the Penguins. They were able to, be like, hey, let's surround our team with talent. And, they got a good coach, a really good coach in Mike Sullivan. Obviously, like, it's so hard to tell, like, say that he's underrated, but he always seems to, be underrated in terms of, like, the Jack Adams, because he does so much often with so little, especially when the team gets injured so often. But I at least wanted to mention the Penguins a little bit here, because, like, they kept their core together overall for a long time, and were able to win at near the beginning, like basically the beginning of their core, and more towards the end of it. So, like, it just overall, that was really good stuff from the Penguins. But yes, the numbers do not lie here. The Lightning, the reason why we talk so much about the Lightning is because they've just constantly had success at across all levels of the sport, and from different eras of hockey to now. It has just been constant in their success. To do that over such a long period of time is, you don't often see that, especially in a league like hockey, where parity is such a big thing in this league overall, in terms of just, like, I know it may just be like perceived parity or whatever, but, like, there's a reason we keep talking about how Cinderella stories or whatever keep making the Stanley Cup Final, because it happens more often than you think. It's not like the NBA, where certain teams are in the NBA finals more often than not. It feels like every team in the NBA could be like a Tampa Bay Lightning. Not every team, but, like, the major competitors. Like, there's more Tampa Bay Lightnings in the NBA than there are in the NHL. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I
The
think that's
super
it though.
teams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, super teams, exactly. And there's a lot more I think to be said about that, but I'm not the biggest basketball person overall, so I'm probably not the one to discuss that. But we're going to wrap the hockey talk here. We are going to end this episode with our pop culture talk, as we always do. So stay tuned for that, because that will be coming up right after this. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing only the brands their warehouse happens to carry. You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. RockAuto.com is a family business, serving auto parts customers online for 20 years. They have everything from engine control modules and brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. RockAuto.com catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle and choose the brands, specifications, and prices you prefer. Best of all, prices at rockauto.com are always reliably low, and the same for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. Why spend up to twice as much for the same parts? Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, Andrew. So, pop culture segment. I did a little bit of pop culture this weekend. I started to watch the first episode of Miss Marvel. I didn't get through it, but I enjoyed what I have seen so far. It's very cute. You were right in that it has like a very Into the Spider-Verse aesthetic going on with, all the like comic book stuff, which is really cool to see. Like the scene at the beginning with the graffiti on the wall, like as she's talking and bike riding, the graffiti morphing to be what she's talking about was really cool. The big thing for me though is I watched the Tony Awards on Sunday because I'm a big musical theater person. I've talked about it before, and I love the Tony Awards. Over the past couple of years, the Tony Awards have been weird because since the pandemic, the Broadway's was shut down for a bit, so it's been a weird couple of years for Broadway. But this year it was the first year in a handful where you've had a full Broadway selection to choose from and stuff like that. And it was fun. And I've mentioned her before, Ariana DeBose, actress from the West Side Story movie that came out in December, who played Anita, was the host. She is incredibly charming. So like just what a show that she performed, like, as the host overall. I just love musical theater is basically where I'm going with this. Obviously, if you're a musical theater person, you will have also probably watched the Tonys. It's great stuff. I just really love musical theater, and I'm glad that the Tonys overall are back with us because I've always thought that they put on the best show overall of the major award shows because they're put on by people who actually enjoy the craft that they do. And there's a lot of love poured into musical theater overall, and I just think the performances are incredible. The people they highlight are way more diverse than you have in Hollywood. So yeah, musical theater is great. Obviously, it's not perfect. There's always work to be done, but it's just I love the Tonys. The Tony season is great. It always coincides with my birthday. So it's just great time of year. Great time of year. But what about you, Andrew? What have you done over the weekend?
I'll be honest, not a lot.
All right.
Played with a lot of bubbles over the weekend. There was not that much TV viewing. By the time things cooled down and the kids were asleep, we pretty much were ready to go to bed as well. We watched a couple episodes of this year's Drag Race, which has been the best season in a very, very long time, and a very nice way to end the day, we'll say. But overall, had not gotten much of a chance to view much this
Well,
year.
it's all
or this,
good.
weekend.
It's a busy time. It's a busy time for us both. But it is at least, there's a lot of good pop culture coming. Some that are out now. I've been hearing a lot of good things about a Netflix show. I think it's called First Kill or something like that. I don't want to mess that up. It's actually a show run like from like an author that I actually really like, V.E. Schwab, who does, a lot of fantasy books and stuff like that. It was from a short story that she did. I've heard good things about it, and I kind of want to check it out. If any of our listeners and or watchers have watched it, let me know because I'm always looking for things or more people to sell me on things. But yeah, it just seems like there's just a lot of really good pop culture. There was a lot of cool video game news in the last week too. There'll be more video game news likely this week because there's going to be some sort of Final Fantasy VII event on Thursday where we might get the second part of Final Fantasy VII Remake announced. So that's
Ooh.
cool. So this is just a lot of good stuff. This time of year, like I said, is always, a exciting time of year because it used to be in the before times you had stuff like I said, like the Tonys, E3, which is a big video game conference, doesn't really exist anymore, in part thanks to the pandemic, in part thanks to other things that used to coincide around this year, but now there's more sporadic video game announcements, but there's still stuff coming out this year. And of course the Stanley Cup Final. So I always thought this time around my birthday is one of the more fun times of the year, and this year it hasn't really disappointed. Things are getting back to normal a little bit more. So it's just been nice to see the return of some sort of normalcy because I have missed the last couple of years when my birthday would have some really exciting stuff in sports and in entertainment and stuff like that because, it's nice. It's just nice to be excited about stuff. But we're going to end it there, though, because that is all the time we have for you today on the Crosscheck NHL Show. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure to follow us on your podcast platform of choice, from Apple to Odyssey to Spotify and YouTube, and review us while you're at it. You can follow the pod at Crosscheck NHL on Twitter, me and Mary C. Clark on Twitter, and Andrew at Andrew Berkshire on Twitter. Thanks for making the Crosscheck NHL Show your first listen every Tuesday and Friday. We'll be back on Friday with some more puck talk, but now make your second listen Locked On NHL. From the first round matchups to each Stanley Cup kiss, Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no other. Hear the latest news and opinions from local experts every Monday through Friday. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts.